Hi, this is Get Real with Chris and Mark. I'm Chris Hill, and this is Mark Frisco.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction, Chris.
Yeah, the normal intro.
That was our normal intro.
Our normal intro, is it? It's really abnormal, though.
It kind of is.
Yeah, I know.
We got a local tasting today, right? I am so excited. Miss Gwen Novak is here from No Time to Cook, one of my dear friends. I absolutely love your establishment. I love everything that you do. I can't even express. I don't even know how many date nights I've been on at your place, at your house back in the day.
That's right.
By the way, those were my favorite. I know they're never going to come back, but those were my favorite. But so tell us a little bit about what you do, Gwen.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for having me. So No Time to Cook is primarily about recreational cooking classes. We like to create community through unique culinary experiences. So we have a wide array of open to the public cooking classes, hands-on, fresh pasta, sushi, Spanish tapas, Chinese takeout. We also do date nights, as you well know,
Yes.
Mark. We do mixology classes. We also do a ton of private cooking classes. They're great for corporate team building. And then we do just, you name it, really, these days. Like COVID is sort of, added to the repertoire. So we do murder mystery dinner parties.
Fun.
We do, we're going to talk a lot more probably about farm to table because I brought a lot of local stuff for you guys to try today.
That's awesome.
We started offering culinary tours right before COVID. We were in Normandy, France, from Normandy to Smith Island.
Wow.
Next year, we're headed to Oktoberfest in Munich. So a little bit of everything. And if it's fun and foodie, we do it at No Time.
And are you still doing the Solomon's Island culinary tour? Is that still a thing, or?
Yeah, so this weekend, what you're talking about is the Culinary Quest.
Yes.
I think, right?
Yes.
You and your sweet wife did that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was, so the Culinary Quest is if a walking historical tour was combined with a mystery picnic, is what you get there.
Very fun.
So you get clues that you have to figure out on your phone to where you will go to pick up each of your 3 courses.
Yeah, and I lived in Southern Calvert my whole life. I learned a bunch of stuff that I didn't know, which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed it. So.
How long have you been there?
So we have been there for 4.5 years.
Wow.
But as Mark knows, that I used to teach classes in my house.
Wow.
But we are, for those of you guys who don't know, we are right on the harbor in Solomon's Island. And that
Beautiful
piece
spot.
of property, I didn't happen on it by accident. My great-grandfather bought that property 104 years ago.
Wow.
And he
That's
started
so cool.
Bowen's Inn as a restaurant, bar, hotel, and marina. My grandmother took over after he passed. My aunt bought it from her when she retired. And then the original restaurant burned down in 2006 with the Lighthouse restaurant.
Yep.
And so we kept this piece of property and built this building, very reminiscent of my grandmother's house. And so that makes me the 4th generation in our family to have a food service
So
business
cool.
there.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is.
So you do. It sounds like you do a little bit of everything now. It's not just classes.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a lot of fun.
This weekend, we'll have open deck with live music on Sunday, and we'll be taking part in the Taste of Solomon's on Saturday.
Fun.
So,
And
yeah.
the cocktails are amazing out there. The view is awesome. There's a little beach down the bottom.
So
Yep.
cool.
Yep,
Really
yep.
cool.
Speaking of cocktails, would you guys like me to make you our signature drink?
Yes.
It's called It Just Gets Better with Time. And I know that you are partial to bourbons,
Okay.
so I am
Okay.
as well. So
I guess we got a reputation now, Mark.
Right?
I don't know what it is.
So we're going
I'll
to
accept
start
it.
with 2
Me too.
ounces per. I'll make it. Well, you guys, you're here for the
Yeah.
duration, right? Okay. So this was actually a drink created for us by our mixologist, Brooke Brown Fritz, with Top Shelf Mixology. It has a combination of 2 ounces of thyme simple syrup and 2 ounces of honey simple syrup.
Nice.
I know, because we can't do anything without a little bit of thyme, right?
That's
and then
right.
I'm going to add a couple drops of bitters, 3 per, and we're going to give it a little shake.
Simple enough.
I know.
Right? I got you the big ice cubes.
Back to the same thing. It's the smell. I get it first, right here. I don't know what it is. The smell. It hit me right away. It's so good.
That was a good spot for a COVID joke, but I'm going to save it for later.
Yeah. Oh no. Are you commenting on my cough today,
Yes.
Mark? Yeah, I figured that's where we were going.
You hadn't coughed on
I know.
camera yet.
I'm like sucking down cough drops over here.
That's funny.
All right, and then we garnish these guys with a fresh lemon wedge and a sprig of thyme.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
see what you think. I hope you like it.
All right, here we go, Mark.
Here we go.
Wow.
Wow. That's excellent.
Oh my gosh.
It's like the perfect
That's
amount
delicious.
Thank you. You
Boozy
really mean
and
it
sweet
too,
at the
right?
same
I do.
time.
I do.
That's awesome.
It's nice because people tend to think bourbon is only a winter drink, but this sort of allows you to play
Puts a little
the
summer
edges
touch
of-
on it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It feels like, you could, middle of summer. It's nice and refreshing,
Yep,
right?
Yep. You kind of have that wooziness of the thyme, but you have that brightness of the lemon against
I was
that
going to say, it's
smokiness of the
amazing
bourbon.
what that little bit of fresh thyme does in there.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can smell it. I can smell the drink when you put it together, but I mean that is so delicious.
Yeah. Thank you.
And smooth and
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, this could be dangerous though.
Yes, it can.
Here's the beauty of this is this was very reminiscent of one of her classes. So, she kind of makes some stuff and tells you what she's doing, and then you get to try it.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people kind of get worried or turned off that it's going to be like super hands-on, like I'm going to have to roll out some dough. And it doesn't mean that it's not, because there is opportunities for that.
Right.
But most of it is like more you teaching, and it's kind of like it's like watching a live cooking show. Imagine if you were sitting in Emerald's kitchen,
Right,
on
and
TV.
just right there in front of you.
Exactly, and then you get to eat and try everything as it all comes out, which is awesome.
That's a good point that you make, though, because a lot of times my initial perception was that there's this big class going on of learning how to make something, but it sounds like you have so many other opportunities
We
for
really
things
do.
there.
And so when you decide you want to come to a cooking class, you can choose between hands-on or demonstration.
Right.
If you'd rather just sit and watch us cook and learn and eat, you always eat. That's always an option. Just look on the
Nice.
website on what kind it is. But even if it is a hands-on class, we have people all the time who one spouse will drag the other person.
Right.
That sounds
Right.
terrible. But they leave telling me this was the best night they've had in the
Aw.
longest time. You learn something new.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And but if you really don't want to cook, you can just sit
It's
and
so
watch too.
different than anything that you do. That's what's so great about it.
Well,
It's like-
interactive eating is kind of a thing, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of like it being a part of it makes it that much better, I think. Just even if you're just watching someone doing it, it's like going to, you go to a restaurant and you see them prepare your food as opposed
Right.
to it being
Right.
hidden in a kitchen behind you somewhere.
I think
I
it
love
makes
that.
it that much more enjoyable too.
Yeah, this
In
is
which case, I will tell you, the other beautiful part is that everything that Gwen does is amazing. So, literally, this drink
That's really
is just
good.
the start. The food is equally as good, if not better.
just
so.
Gwen. It really is really really good.
It's funny. I feel like this somehow turned into like a commercial for
I know.
Gwen.
I know.
But I am genuinely, honestly telling you all this because I think that everything that she does is awesome.
So total transparency. I told you I've been sucking down cough drops, and I thought it would really interfere with this
Yeah.
drink, but it's like
Is it?
I got the lemon honey cough drop, so it's kind of
You
like
were-
perfect.
You were already teed up.
I was
and
teed up,
prepared.
right? I was ready
awesome.
for it.
Well, I couldn't just bring you a cocktail and not bring
Oh,
you
boy.
something to eat as well. And one of the things that I and my team are really passionate about is supporting local. The whole, eat local, support your farmers kind of movement that's been popular for quite a long time. But we have such an amazing array of people in Southern Maryland, who do just phenomenal things. And so, with the exception of 2 ingredients, absolutely everything in what you're getting ready to eat is locally sourced.
Wow.
I mean the salt.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I've created for you is just kind of a fun dish.
Oh boy.
Awesome.
It is fresh, locally farm-raised oysters from 38 North down here
Okay.
in southern St. Mary's. We have some local mushrooms from Chesapeake Bounty. The bread was intended to be from Enzo's, but my yellow lab, Shelly, got into it, so you sorry about that. The salt is from a mine in West Virginia. The wine in this is from Port of Leonardtown, their new
Awesome.
Chardonnay. The cream is from a creamery in Frederick, Maryland. The butter is from the Eastern Shore. Yeah, it's. I just wanted you to
Sold.
taste it. So
I know. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm loving it so far.
it might
Yeah.
not be quite as warm as I would like it at
That's
this point,
okay.
but
I'm getting rid of my cough
you'll
drop.
get the flavors.
Yeah, you might.
You'll get the flavors. And again, we do a pop-up farm to table dinner once a month, and so the menu changes every month, and it's completely based on what is seasonally and
man.
locally available. Okay?
That's
on.
awesome.
Right?
Come
Yeah.
on.
We're
Yeah.
so spoiled, Chris.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
That is
honestly,
so delicious.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Thank you.
Yeah. This was worth us coming up with this whole idea doing this.
Yeah, I know, right?
Podcast. Seriously.
So
No,
I'm
that-
sorry I missed you guys a couple of weeks ago, but we're actually looking at doing something new and different. We had a food truck. We're getting ready to swap that out because we have, if you've never been to No Time, we have 2 floors of kitchens so that because we often have classes going on this first and second floor at the same time. The 3rd floor, we created what we call the Chef's Loft. So it's an Airbnb, so you can stay with us. And it is probably one of the most spectacular views in Solomon's. And you can take a class with us and then stumble back upstairs. But
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
actually looking at adding to our Airbnb and doing a boat.
Oh,
and, doing
that's
sort
smart.
Of like
That's pretty
a
cool.
liveaboard.
I've wondered if there
Yeah.
were any of those in Solomon's already because there's just so many boats docked down there.
Yeah.
I always thought that would be a really good idea of Airbnb.
Yeah.
a-
Yeah, I've never
a
heard.
boat.
You don't hear of many of them, I don't think.
No.
I mean, this is amazing. Like, the oysters are really good.
Right.
Everything in
Yeah.
here is good.
Everything's really good. And I got that's it just.
I'm trying to not be rude and like
Yeah,
house
No,
this.
I know. What am I
Well-
supposed to do? I got to eat it.
One of the other fun things that we do, we have a culinary book club. It's called Literary Bites, and we meet every other month, and we pick not a cookbook, but a work of fiction or nonfiction that really sort of speaks to us and about food. And so this month it was Animal Vegetable Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver, and it's all about the locavore movement. And one of the stats in that book was that if each one of us would just eat one locally sourced meal a week, we could save, I think it's 1.1 billion gallons of petroleum a week.
Whoa.
A week.
A week.
That's
Isn't
crazy.
that outstanding? I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
think people
crazy.
think, it's such a big issue and what can I do about it? Go to your farmer's market.
That's
Go
it.
Eat one local meal a week.
I pride myself on going to the local
Yeah.
farmer's market. I mean, the produce is always better.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
there's no question about it. No matter what you're getting, it's always better.
Yeah,
And-
it really is. And you're supporting your neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that your kids go to school with, that you sell property to, that you go to church with.
Right.
On average, our food travels 1,500 miles from
That's
its
insane.
origin to your dinner
Yeah.
plate. And, the quality is,
It's not the
a
same.
tomato picked,
Right.
1,500
There's
miles
no
away.
comparison.
There is no comparison.
None at all.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
the
amazing.
example.
Absolutely.
I love the farm to table.
Oh, me too.
You know,
We talked about
it-
that before
Yes.
when we
It's
first
amazing.
got
I
here.
think there needs to be more of that.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
that the restaurants in our area could do more of that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, where the costs are, and that's not my world, but I just feel like there's so much opportunity for that.
Yep.
And as I've always said, I feel like Southern Maryland has just a great opportunity with its farms and aquaculture and what we can do here.
Yep.
I think we barely scratched the surface of what we
No,
can
I
do.
agree with you, and then that gets into that whole when we talked about aquaculture and things like that
Yeah.
early on. I mean, this is an opportunity, I think, for
Right.
this.
Doing just this.
I mean, this is fantastic for real.
Thank
I mean,
you.
that is it's and that's what you get, right, when you source locally.
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to have a lot of crazy ingredients.
Right.
You just buy great ingredients and
have
let
another
them
bite.
speak for themselves, right? Treat
Oh,
them
you
with
think I'm
respect.
gonna let that
and-
sit there? I'm gonna eat it, Mark. I am.
I'm like waiting for us to get off camera.
Yeah, I know.
can
You think I
just
wasn't thinking the same thing?
know.
I'm like, the first time we're off cameras, I'm gonna be shoving that bread in my mouth, right? It's so good. It's creamy, and the oysters, and the mushrooms. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Local. Every
Yeah,
single
the
I
mushrooms
didn't even know we
ingredient.
had local mushrooms.
I didn't know it either.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of varieties, too.
Chesapeake's Bounty is just
That's
a
exactly where I got
great
them.
spot for that stuff.
Yeah, Will does a phenomenal job. He is
Yep.
passionate
And
about
I'll be honest,
local
we don't
sourcing.
go there enough. So
Yeah.
I don't know if my wife listens to these podcasts, but we
Ah.
need to go there more often.
And there are a lot of great CSAs too, community-supported agricultural groups that if you don't have time, they will deliver it to your door.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
When you taste something like this, and you know that everything's essentially local, it makes the dish better too. I think
Absolutely.
it's something about it. Like, you just
Yeah.
know that it's all something. Yeah, it is.
So how can folks get a hold of you? How can they check you out?
Yeah, go to our website. It's the best way. NoTimeToCook.com. And of course, time is spelled like the herb, Thyme. Always follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah,
exciting.
subscribe to our newsletter. That's really the best way to get the latest and greatest of what's
I have
happening.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
Do
so I
it
have to
for
do
sure.
Yeah, I know I have to do it now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't even know there was a newsletter, so now I do.
Well, thank you so much for the
Yes.
tasting.
My
and Thank you
pleasure.
so much for all the great things that you do.
You're sweet.
Because you honestly, I don't know if you know this or realize this, but you truly are an inspiration to many. One of my other hats, Chris, is
Right.
big with the Calvert Chamber, and Gwen is pretty active over there and fairly active in a bunch of different networking groups all around Southern Maryland, and she truly is an inspiration. So
That's awesome.
You're sweet.
Thank you.
I mean, I really feel like we all work better if we work together.
Yeah.
So
Into that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're excited to bring people in here and hear the stories and understand what it is. It's just so exciting and everybody has there's such a neat story for everybody. But I love what you're doing over there.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
exciting.
Come
Can't
see
wait
us.
to get over there.
Come see
Thanks
us.
so much.
All right.
Cool.
So our first topic today, I actually was looking on the Baynet. I was reading a story that looks like a press release from Calvert County about TDRs, forest conservation TDRs. So it's something I don't know a lot about. So over there, versus that, I know enough. They're being discontinued or terminated or whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us more about that, because it's a Calvert County thing. I thought we'd talk about it today.
So it's an interesting thing. A lot of people don't know what TDRs are. So TDRs are transferable development rights. And in this particular case, the TDRs in question are called forest conservation TDRs. Now, their purpose is to give a developer the ability to not have to put parts of their property that they're developing in forest conservation, and instead purchase a transferable development right for forest conservation off of another property. So it's like you're conserving land over here so that you can develop land over here fully. And actually, this was a beautiful thing that Calvert County was kind of at the forefront of. I think they've been in existence for over 30 years now.
I mean, honestly, I remember hearing about TDRs for years. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's definitely been a thing.
And believe it or not, Calvert County was actually one of the first counties in the entire country to create and enforce a TDR policy, a true transferable development right policy ever. And that policy has been modeled all across the country. It's worked actually really well.
It actually sounds like a great plan. I mean,
Yeah,
like you can if you're not using the conservation here, you can use it elsewhere within the county.
Yeah. It's a great way for you to encourage growth to happen in specific areas, all while still conserving land and conserving area elsewhere. That's why at this point, almost 50%, I think over 50% of the land in Calvert County has been preserved. Originally with
So half of the county is preserved.
half of Calvert County is in preservation.
See, that's notable, right? Like, because that's something that people don't necessarily, not everybody knows that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So literally, everybody talks about the growth and how out of control and all
Right.
that is, but the reality is
It's very limited.
half
So
of it isn't.
even if you developed everything that you could develop in Calvert County right now, it honestly wouldn't look all that different at the end of the day,
Right.
because these large land masses are all preserved, and there's multiple different ways to preserve land. TDRs are just one of them.
Right.
Ordinary TDRs are created through preservation districts, and we still have regular TDRs. When I say regular TDRs,
Right.
it's just the ability to essentially buy the development rights off of this property.
Right.
So this property cannot be developed,
Yeah.
and then transfer it to this property over here. And now let's say this property could have been 3 houses. This property could now be 6 because you use these development rights from here to here. This property has to stay in conservation. So it's a beautiful program. It's existed for a long time. The forest conservation TDRs are going away because at one point in time, and this is how I know the story, so don't
Okay.
shoot the messenger,
Yeah, I get
okay?
it.
At one point in time, the county had a new employee who began interpreting the state regulations and laws in a different manner than what was interpreted before. And this employee said, hey, this isn't right. You're not allowed to do this. And they sent it up to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General's office agreed with that employee and said, oh, yeah, that's right. This is not how this was meant to be interpreted. In which case it in turn killed a program that's existed and worked really, really well for a long time. Unfortunately, in order to revert back or recreate that same program, it would require for some pretty substantial regulations to be changed, which is more than likely not going to happen. So what's happened is that now if you own forest conservation TDRs, they are very, very valuable because there's developers who are trying to get their hands on them to apply them to their project prior to the date that they're going to go out of use, which I don't know what it said in the article.
I read
but
like
it's
2023, 2024, I think.
Sometime within the next year or so. So there's kind of a bum rush to find them. Oddly enough, there's not that many of them out there.
Right.
In addition to this happening, I actually served on a committee with the county that basically helped to create a TDR reserve within the county. One of the frustrations for development for a long time was that if you're a developer, by the time that you buy a piece of property, intending to develop it, and then intending to buy TDRs, I mean, by the time that you're ready to purchase those TDRs and record it, they could have doubled in price, or they could be non-existent or whatever. So the purpose was that this TDR bank with the county, this TDR reserve with the county could buy up TDRs. In those TDRs that they buy up, they could also purchase and retire some of them, which they are doing all the time to try to preserve even more land. And then you could also take, and let's say they had 20,000 TDRs, which they don't have that many, but let's say they had 20,000 TDRs there. A developer knows that there's a bank of TDRs that they can go purchase at a set price, so they could make decisions, in an easier fashion. What happened is some of the largest holders of TDRs are large farm owners and agencies that have conserved land. So there's a specific agency that conserves a lot of land in Calvert County that owned the majority of the forest conservation TDRs. For the longest time, because there was a plethora of regular TDRs and forest conservation TDRs, essentially they were about the same price. They did almost the same thing, except for the forest conservation ones kind of had this special use that they could be used for the forest conservation piece. Well, when the TDR bank opened up, that agency that owned all those TDRs sold them to the county into the bank. So now, because they've been sold away, and I believe that when they were sold away, now they're in the county's control, right? So the county can just shut them down and get rid of them now that they're not allowed anymore. So there's very few of them out there. They're very valuable at this moment, is my understanding. And again, this is just my take and my spiel based on what I've heard. But it's kind of an interesting topic. What's more interesting about the topic to me is how someone can come into employment at a local government and cause such a ruckus.
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy to me.
We talked about this in, how a previous episode, how I think we talked about how, new people come in and can interpret things differently.
Yep.
And, I jokingly said to you earlier, it's like, kind of like the Bible, right? Like, that's how different religions came about, right? And it's the same thing. You're going to have different interpretations. I think it's a shame. I mean, I guess here's the thing, especially a program that's worked
for so long.
One would say worked so well for so long, right?
Well, and I think that where all this stemmed from, it doesn't mean that person that interpreted that wasn't right.
Oh, right.
But I think what happened, if you were to rewind time, when those initial regulations were pushed out, lawmakers and governments at the time probably saw the flaws that were in them and made policies kind of around those flaws, like here's how we're going to work around this flaw without having to rewrite the whole document.
Right.
And here's born this forest conservation TDR program that's been in existence all this time. It's crazy to me that nobody could or would stand up and say, that's why we've been doing this way.
Right.
We understand that the document's written that way. But, I think that there's probably a lot of those instances out there, which is really scary because, again, if you're a developer in that scenario that is making decisions based on what exists today, and you're buying a piece of property. Let's say you're buying a piece of property that required 200 forest conservation TDRs, and then all of a sudden they get shut down in a year, but now you own this piece of dirt that in order for it to make sense for what you purchased it for, you needed those TDRs, which no longer exist.
Right.
I mean, it's even crazier that can happen. These are things that people don't think about because they just, again, they think of, big developer, whatever, they got the pockets to deal with.
Yeah, but I mean,
whatever.
we get back to, you and I have talked about that too. A lot of the developers that we know are locals.
Right.
Right. They're here.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, it's just kind of sad in its own right.
And sometimes it's smaller guys too.
Yeah, no, I know.
They're just not the ones that you hear about the
Yeah.
most.
And
So
they may have been planning something for many years and then just get punched in the gut a little bit.
that's exactly right. So that's the forest conservation TDR. It's not a super fun topic.
No,
we
but
probably
I mean,
put some
honestly,
people to sleep.
I like it. You know, I mean, we are, you know, I'm a goober for real estate anyway.
Right.
But, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, that's what we do. And learning about, I think it's important for people to understand what the programs are. I mean, if you just scan through some of these stories, you don't know, you don't understand what it really, what the impact of it really has. And I think that's part of what we talk about with getting real, right? Like letting people. And maybe there's more to the story, and maybe we hear somebody else's story, and they're like, you know, that makes sense, right? But anyway, I figured we could talk about that because it's something that was newsworthy in Calvert County.
Yeah.
But all right, so I think with that, we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
My question to you, Mark, is how can you find us?
Oh boy. Every time. You can find us on YouTube, the Baynet's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Right. You can find us on thebaynet.com/podcast.
Right.
You can find us on the Baynet's Facebook page.
Sure
you
can.
can find us on Spotify.
Yes.
I think you said Amazon
Well,
Music.
only I just know that by accident, but yes, Amazon Music.
Is
or
that
something
everything?
Like
Did I
or
get 'em
Amazon
all?
Podcast. I think so.
Okay, we're cool. But
we're
either way,
cool.
you can find us. Just Google us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's a topic that you want, please share with us, right? Like, so
Yeah.
tell us something that you want to talk about. If there's anything you want to hear.
I would love to know, you know, if we have viewers out there, which I think we have a couple.
There's a couple.
But I would love to know what you guys want to hear about, what
Yeah, me
you
too.
want us to get real about. It may be a topic that you and I aren't privy to. We got to bring in another guest.
Right.
So let's do it.
Yeah, I'm into it. So, all right, with that.
Catch you next time.
Catch you next week.
Yeah.